we are with a reality check. And what we're trying to do is take some of these lessons that we learned from a reality show and put them into life application. So here's a couple that I drew from this last episode. First, we want to be with positive people, people who are stable even during adverse times. I mean, most people can be stable when things are going well, and unfortunately some people can't, and you know that pretty quickly, but most people can. But during adversity, when they're faced with things that don't go their way, how do they handle those situations? That's where you can see some real character. As you're looking for friends, people that you can trust, and people that you can rely on. You know, those are two key characteristics, trust and reliance, that make for a good, healthy relationship. And if a person has a lot of struggle during adverse times, they flake out, you don't really know who they're going to be, they're really off the wall, or they sort of make the problem bigger or make more problems from the initial problem, those are people that are going to be hard to have in long-term relationships or in close quarters with for very long. So that's one reality check to take out of this episode. The second is the idea of sharing an intense emotional experience really makes a strong bond. Now, trying to figure out, is that bond one of love, one of significant lasting proportions, one that has sustaining characteristics that have that ability to rely on, trust, and then commit to a person. I'm a physician, I married a nurse, and in the hospital you see a lot of times whenever you're around life and death and delivering babies and really happy times and really sad times, there's intense emotional experiences. And that's why those shows, those hospital shows or doctor shows, there's a lot of relationships and a lot of affairs because those personnel share a lot of intense emotional relationships. And sometimes it's hard to separate the intense experience from the person that you're having the experience with. And so sometimes they get sort of pushed together. So you think that those feelings, that thrill, that adrenaline, that rush, those endorphins that get released during that intense emotional experience, those are similar to love kind of chemical reactions. And so we sort of confuse that reaction to that intense emotional experience for love. And since there's a person involved, instead of it being the experience that's getting us that high, we associate with the person that's there during that time. So those intense emotional bonds that sometimes are the basis of a relationship, or at least starting a relationship, but doesn't have much lasting capabilities unless two people really work on it and take that initial experience and look to grow that in some way. So obviously on this show, there's a lot of intense emotional experiences. You have once in a lifetime kind of dates, dropping 36 stories with somebody and holding on to them as you're conquering a fear. That's an intense emotional experience. Does that really mean that you know the person, you can trust the person, you can rely on the person? Or is it just, I was incredibly thrilled by the activity and Sarah happened to be along, or Sean happened to be along? Or is this something that allows you to get to know the person a little bit more, but build your relationship and your feelings for that person based on knowing the person, their reliability, their trustability, not we share this really incredible emotional experience together. The third is the idea that Sean might propose after 9 dates. As I talked about a little bit earlier in my session with Sean, you really shouldn't propose after 9 dates. Nobody really knows another person enough, has shared enough life experiences. I mean, even if they were just normal dates, and these aren't normal dates, these are above and beyond normal dates, these are incredible dates. I mean, it's almost impossible to have a bad date in the circumstances and the monies that they're expending on these particular dates. So, but even on 9 average dates, so to speak, that you and I would have in our life, 9 dates isn't enough to get to know somebody, let alone to understand whether you can really rely on them and trust them enough to be able to commit to the person. So 9 dates, that's a great start. You can certainly learn a lot of things about a person and get to know some of them, in deeper level. But really seeing them interact in a whole bunch of different situations with a bunch of different people, that's not really going to happen very much. So the idea that Sean is certain or giving it real strong consideration that he'll propose at the end of this season, I would really caution him and any of you out there that 9 dates isn't enough to make that determination. I want to point out Katie. Katie is the one who left early, and I think that was real courageous of her. It's certainly embarrassing to leave a situation early when you're probably hoping that you're going to stay for a long time, and sort of like Survivor, when you get voted out, that's pretty embarrassing when you get voted out the first person. But I think that was good self-awareness on Katie's part. It showed a good understanding of who she is, what she can tolerate, what she's good at, what she's not, where some of her weak points are, and how she might function through the course of the next several episodes. So even though it might have been embarrassing on some levels for her to bow out right now, I think it was by far a courageous thing for her to do. Shared her, saved herself a lot of heartache and difficulty, but showed real good understanding of her awareness of who she is, good self-concept, and sort of survival instincts of knowing that she was probably going to get eaten up in this kind of scenario. It just wasn't for her personality and style, and so she bought it. I think that was real good. But that's a nice lesson that we all need to learn, that sometimes we get a little deeper in something that we know we should probably be backing out of, but because of fear of other people's opinions, embarrassment, what we might look like, the negative feedback we might get, we just get into a hole a lot deeper instead of just cutting our losses and saying, I need to get out right now. That's going to be the safest and best thing and healthiest thing for me, psychologically, emotionally, relationally, spiritually, to get out right now. The last thing I'll put out is, Leslie M. She says, I'm a traditional Southern girl. I don't make the first move. But yet we find her, during that pool party, going back to Sean, getting a second chance to make the first move. I think that was out of character for her. I encourage, as I said the last time in Reality Check, for people to be themselves, to really be who they are, and let that person fall in love, get to know and fall in love with the person you really are. Because that's the person you really want them to love. That's the person that you want to be on a regular basis, is your natural self. And so it might have shown that she's willing to risk, that she's willing to step out of her comfort zone a little bit for him, that she really cares about him that much, that she's willing to do that. I think in the end, Sean really wants to just see, who are you? Who are you at the base? And let me love you for who you are. And I was a little sad to see Leslie sort of make that move and sort of act out of character a little bit. And you can see how awkward she was doing it, because it just wasn't her natural self. And it turned out sort of awkwardly. They both had fun with it, but it just wasn't her, and it was an awkward moment. So those are my reality checks for this week. I hope to see you back next week. Thanks. Bye now.